Welcome, everybody, to the Forehands Middle podcast. We survived episode 1. This is episode 2. We have Nico the lefty here, and I'm joined as always by
Gino the righty.
Awesome, perfect. By the way, I have no idea when I'm like pointing at you because you're on like the right side of my screen, but then you're probably going to show up on top here. I don't know, but we'll get this figured out. And for
Yeah,
those
we,
of
we
you
got
that
lots of comments. We need to make sure that we have our actual forehands middle in the recording of the podcast. The amount of people that said that I was on the right and you were on the left apparently is, to be fair, maybe unforgivable.
look, they'll probably never know. We could be mirrored. I don't know. This could be my left hand or my right hand. You know, we'll have no idea. I mean, there might be some clues, ring finger, whatever. But yeah. All right.
You gotta take them off.
Look, the fact that we're even getting this up, you know, is good enough for me for right now. So we'll work on the technicalities here in the upcoming episodes. But thanks everybody for tuning in. We got a packed show today. We're going to go over MLP New York, New York in general. I survived New York with my dad and my family and a 6-year-old or 6-month-old. Then we'll go into the PPA Las Vegas previews and share anything else that's on our mind. All right, we'll start with New York. What an action-packed 3 days. I was there for 1 day. I'm not sure if I chose the best day or not, but was there for semifinals.
Yeah. I feel like for you, you probably chose the worst day for you personally to be at at MLP, unfortunately.
Yeah. You know, when I got tickets to New York, I was like, all right, I was pretty sure that the Shock are going to be there. You know, obviously big Shock fan. I was debating, do I go on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, right? We have a family, and I didn't want to drag them to MLP all 3 days since there are some first timers in New York. And so I went with the safe pick, which was Thursday, semifinal Thursday. And I guess I made the right choice and the wrong choice because I got to see 2 Shock matches, and I got to see the only 2 Shock matches in New York. So why don't we start there? What happened? What happened in the Shock Columbus Slider series?
I think you can just throw a dart on the Columbus Riders team and just say this player was playing completely out of their mind. I don't know if you can tell, but I tried to pick the biggest red shirt that I had in my entire closet in honor of our Lord and Savior CJ Klinger with the hat, all the way back. CJ, you're the king. Honestly, specifically for the Shock, though, you know they had been such a freight train the entire season. Even while my beloved Flash were in first place the whole time, I was kind of just biting my nails. I was like, how are the Shock not in first place the whole time? Because their team was so good. And even during the Sliders Shock matches, you're watching and you're kind of just like watching a train wreck in slow motion, but you can't figure out what is happening real time. Obviously, Andre Descu, started peaking, and CJ Klinger played out of his mind, and Paris was playing super good doubles, and Leia was holding her own, and we'll talk about her maybe more in the fives match. But honestly, there's no, maybe that's what made the sliders so good was I don't think that they were doing one specific thing against the Shock. They were just playing great pickleball for lack of better pro analysis.
Yeah, you know, I think it was like the perfect storm for them. I think that Hayden and Gabe played probably some of the worst pickleball that they had. But, you know, one thing that has been talked about a little bit and that I got to see firsthand was they're playing on a temporary surface on top of a ski rink, right? Sorry. On top of an ice rink with like pickle roll like surface, all right? And the ball
Which is
just didn't
amazing.
bounce.
Crazy.
Right.
Crazy to have your semifinals and finals on a pickle roll court.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
get it's
like
New York, but
judge juggle like, do I want to have it in Central Park, which is super cool, or do I want to have it on like an actual playing surface, which is also pretty cool. So I don't know what the pros would choose. I think probably a good playing surface, but especially if you're Hayden and Gabe. And so here's the thing: it's like you could see it right from the beginning, and like I'm watching Leia and Paris warm up, and they're just hitting dinks right into the middle of the court, and the ball's just dying, and they're just like watching, and they're like doing it repeatedly. Like Leia's like, watch this, boom. No bounce, no bounce, no bounce. And they know exactly where that spot is on the court, which is pretty much the whole court. But especially in the kitchen, ball's not bouncing up at all. So for me, that just does not play well for 2 guys that their kind of whole offense is deception, speeding the ball up off the bounce, waiting, and making you feel uncomfortable. If that ball doesn't bounce, really all you can do is like short hop the ball, hope that you can take it out of the air. And, Hayden, not super tall, right? Playing against two guys that are, 6'4", 6'5". It's like a recipe for disaster. So, for me, I'm just wondering, like, what happens if they don't play on that surface? Does Andre and CJ, do they still look like the gods that they were? Or do Hayden and Gabe pull it out? It's crazy.
The thing is, yeah, that was one thing I kept hearing, in the pickle sphere. Obviously, I wasn't there to witness it firsthand, but the gods that speaking of the gods of CJ Klinger and Andre Gassi is I don't think I saw CJ Klinger miss or lose a single hands battle all weekend. Like there were ones that where he was getting deeper and deeper into the shit, and he was still just like sitting there. I've never, I don't think I've ever seen anybody with a higher success rate in hand battles over a specific weekend. Maybe one game, but every single time he was just like they were hitting higher, he was hitting lower, and he was still just like standing there somehow getting all these balls back. And so yeah, hampering the number one offensive weapon you have for the shock while the other team is just exploding on the only other way you can speed up is a tough look.
And believe it or not, I bet you I think if there's some stats that came out from Real Clear Stats, shout out to them, super awesome. But I think they'd actually argue that Andre Daescu had the best speed up counter defense rate out of anybody all season in this weekend. So like I think if CJ didn't lose a hands battle, Andre won every single hands battle. I think the two of them obviously didn't lose too much, but Andre, his success rate in hands battles was insane. And then what for me was so crazy is like they're so long. So I understand how they can start a hands battle, but being long, I feel like sometimes hinders you because you're not as quick to move, left, right, up, down, right? You got a big arm to move, and they blocked everything. And it just seemed like no matter how low somebody got on them, the ball came back just as low. Like, normally it's like, oh, if you hit down on the ball's going to come back up. No, but people would hit down on the ball, and then Andre would just hit it flat right, right over the net, and he would neutralize the point immediately. And so I think his success rate, realistically was like in the 70s, 70 percentile in all these hands battles, which is like unheard of. Normally you're thinking like 50%, 55%, you want your success rate, and he was, upper 70s.
Yeah, so it's like, I think Roger Federer had an interview one time where he's talking about winning versus losing and success and what that means. And he's like, I won X amount of matches in my career. You know how many points I won in my career? It's like 52% or something like that. It's like you have to be just good enough to obviously to win an entire match. But so what amazes me, speaking about Andre, is I'm amazed that he's able to keep his cool in a hands battle because I don't know if you've ever seen his face when he's in the middle of a hands battle, but I feel like he's just grimacing so hard, and I feel like if my face had that grimace while I was in a hands battle, my hand would be tight, and obviously all of the pro instructors and everything, but it's like you want to be loose and you want to be able to be fluid in your hands battles, but he doesn't look very calm in his hand battles, but I don't know what you do to beat this guy. Like he just seems like he's Thanos and he's inevitable and he just comes in, he's tall, he's the oldest player on the court, and he's just moving these people around effortlessly. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I think the two of them are like almost opposite, CJ and Andre, when it comes to the hands battle. Andre is like biting his lip and
Yeah.
and going insane, and CJ just has got his glasses on, his backwards hat, look like he's smoking a cigarette, and just out there just doing easy work. But yeah, that team, honestly, it was crazy to watch. I think after like the first men's match, I was like, I don't know if the Shock can do this. Like this is crazy. Like I'm surprised they lost women's, and I don't think that's gonna happen again. But I don't know how you beat this men's team, anybody, and I don't think anybody did. So they played great. It was crazy to watch, and it backfired on the Shock in game one where they set the matchups to have Anna and Hayden play last, and they didn't even get to play
Yeah.
because Andre and Paris ended up winning the third match, 3-0 first match. Second match, they switched up the matchups, and I think it gave Andre and Paris their only loss of the weekend was Hayden and Anna one time, but then Columbus came through in a dream breaker. Sorry. Leah Jansen mentioned in the post-game interview, I was glad I got to play Anna Bright in that singles match where I lost in the PPA because I got some secrets and some tells from Anna for the dream breaker. So it turns out that Anna's 4D chest backfired on her.
Humongous
Yeah.
mistake in practicing for MLP, pre MLP. How dare
Yeah,
you?
exactly, exactly. But yeah, they looked unbeatable, and so shout out to the Shock for a good season. We'll see what happens. They got some decisions to make as well, but they just ran into the buzzsaw that was Columbus Sliders. Speaking of buzzsaws, next semifinal match. The Fives against the Mad Drops, which was the matchup that I think everybody wanted to see. Ben versus Anna Leigh. Were they going to play against each other? Were they not? And they did. They played against each other and mixed, but tough sledding for the Fives. Sorry, for the Mad Drops.
I mean, luckily for the Fives, they ran into what I think is the number one professional. Maybe this is a question for you: is has there ever been a professional athlete in the history of professional sports that has been less interested in winning than Ben Johns in MLP?
You know, there may have been, but nobody that actually wins. Like it's funny. It's like Ben John wins despite not wanting to win. Like if you look at like the USO, you look at tennis and you look at Nick Kyrgios, right? Like there's a guy that also just didn't care about the sport, right? And that was all this wasted potential. But like he wasn't like the best player in the world, right? Like he was, he was wasted potential. Ben is like all potential, no energy. I guess, he's won an MLP, he's won 150 or whatever PPAs. Like, is he bored of winning? Like,
Yeah.
is this Ben at his core, or is this Ben because he has like defeated every and won everything he can in pickleball?
Yeah, because what's amazing is, and we talk about NLP evolving, and it's not in its last iteration, and obviously they need to make lots of changes to the rules to make sure it becomes its final form, and what does the game structure look like and the team structure look like. But he, I remember when he had the Seattle Pioneers, and it was just like granted he had Megan Hassan, who was in the championship, Etta, who was one of the best women, and Tyler, who has been around the sport for forever. But I feel like of that team, Ben just like was like, you know what? I'm going to take you guys and we're going to win this championship because of me, 100%. And while it's weird, maybe it's just a mindset, or maybe it's just the fact that whenever his team is all energetic and he's just standing there like this, and he's like, it's a different attitude. But I feel like that's not there anymore with him in MLP. Like it's hey, we have that Ben Johns, which is great, and he's super good, but we're not going to win because of him. I don't exactly know how to frame it, but it just going into that fives match, I'm like, I don't know what Ben Johns is going to really will us, if he's going to will us over the finish line.
No, yeah, he was doing that his whole career before. He was dragging Eric Lang. I don't want to say dragon. Eric Lang was playing fantastic. He played some of the best, like 4 minutes of pickleball
Yeah,
in his life a couple times on the slice. But yeah, I mean, he was going all out and he was winning. Here's my thoughts with Ben is that Ben is no longer good enough to completely drag his team to victory all the time, right? He might be able to do that sometime, but not all the time, all right? And so what I think is that he knows this and he thinks if I don't try, I will never look like I'm not good enough, right? Like right now, no one's saying is Ben not good enough. People are saying Ben doesn't try, right? And so like I think he'd rather have that narrative, believe it or not, which is bizarre, than the narrative of like, oh, he used to be good enough to drag his team to win, and now he's not. I think both are still true. Like he's not trying, and the gap between him and the next best guy, or honestly like the next like five best guys, and that was the thing is like back in the day, it was like Ben was here, Riley was here, and then like everybody else was here, right? And so now it's like if Ben is at the top, which I'll still put Ben at the top, right? You have like Hayden, Gabe, Christian, Andre, like within like a half a step, right? And so CJ Klinger, they're all right there next to Ben, and so I think he realizes that, and it's just like, all right, yeah, I can't do it on a team format, and so like here we go, I'm just gonna poo-poo this match.
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah, it's the apathy of like, I'm not gonna embarrass myself. Like, hey, I really gave it my all and I still lost. But yeah, you just think about back in the day. If you think 18 months ago, whenever Ben and Colin would lose, the other team, like look, go back to when Andre and Gabe first beat Ben and Colin, that looked like this is the pinnacle of my life, and there's nothing else on planet Earth that I wanted more than this. This is the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And now it's almost like people get upset sometimes when they're not, which is crazy. Like when we first started playing pickleball, it was basically you know, uh, a sure thing that Ben was almost going to triple crown. And I don't even remember the last time Ben triple crowned at all. But even now, with that used to be like, oh, maybe singles he's going to lose, and then he'll for sure win doubles. And now it's like in men's doubles, he loses, and it's great. Hey, you beat Ben Johnson. He's still, like you said, at the top of the list, but it's not a shocking thing because I don't know if he has it in him to just take whoever he wants and go, yeah, I'm going to win with you, and I'm going to win with you, and I'm going to win with you.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, and it's weird. It's like he's still winning with almost everybody, but in MLP he he can't. And I
Yeah,
agree. I think
it's
like
the craziest thing. Yeah, to think about. We're ragging on this guy who still wins all of the time, and it's a very bizarre, a bizarre thing to talk about or to think about of like how are we ragging on him, even though he's if you had to bet on one person, you would still bet on Ben Johnson.
I mean, yeah. So to think about this, like to put it in perspective, we're shitting all over Ben, MLP Ben, and I think that is a different Ben. But just this year in PPA, he has won a gold medal with Colin Johns. He's won a gold medal with Andre Deescu. He's won four, I think, or three with Gabe. I think he made semifinals with Hayden. So like he's still going basically with everybody he plays with and winning gold medals. But like when it comes to can he do it with Hunter Johnson, right? Okay, so maybe he can win a gold medal with everybody in like the top 5, maybe everybody in the top 10, but definitely not people in the top 20. And he proved that with Hunter Johnson in that match. And, they had their chances. Both games, they had 10-9 game point
Hmm.
on their paddle, and they lost. They lost 12-10, I think, both times.
Yep.
And, if they win that men's match in both of those men's matches against the fives, they're 1-1. Anna Leigh and Will steamrolled Ben and Catherine, but I think you still have a decent shot with Hunter and Jade,
Hmm.
in a second match, and then you come into a dream breaker. But the boys weren't able to bring it home against the fives, which I think is to me the biggest shocker.
Yeah, especially with the fives, with Will and Noe, I feel like they had no idea what they wanted to do. They were like, okay, we're keeping Noe on the left. Will, I feel like this whole time is like, should I be playing the left or not? And so the two of them, it still seemed like there was a ton for them to figure out while they were playing. And so I thought that would have lended itself to more of a chance for Ben and Hunter, but for
Yeah,
whatever reason, they made the score when they needed.
and that it was interesting with Will and Noe. By the way, is like I never realized that Noe likes to play the left. For some reason, I always just look at Noe and I just like feel like he seems like this like steady guy that would play the right, and just kind of be there and be consistent and whatnot. But apparently, he likes to play the left, and I think for his career, I would tell him get better at playing on the right. I think
Yeah.
that would be a great place for him. He's not super long. I'm not sure where length matters more, the left or the right, but he just seems like someone that should be able to play and adapt a little bit more to playing on the right side.
And especially with Will, for all his credit and all his faults, he has the aura of a left side player. It maybe specifically in MLP. To my chagrin, is a lot of his shit talking and the way, like sometimes unfounded, where he's like, "Well, how dare you attack me?" You're like, "Well, I mean, that's Ben Johnson, or whoever it is." I feel like that's what you need, especially in MLP, for the person on the left. Is like, "Hey, I'm going to take a lot of balls, and because I'm taking a lot of balls, I'm going to talk a lot of shit," which Will Hallis loves to do. So. If it were me, I would probably try to get Will on the left and see if you can
For
fix
sure, and
him.
the thing is, like Will's been playing APP for like the last 2 years, and because he's doing APP, he's the best player in on the whole tour. So he's always playing on the left. Whereas
Mhm.
Noe has like he jumped immediately into PPA, right, where he was only playing with partners that were better than him for the most part. So when he played with J Dub or when he plays with whoever else he's playing with on PPA, he has had experience playing on the right because they have, J Dub's not going to be playing on the right for you, right? And
Yeah.
so he had opportunities, and I think they just needed to commit to something. And this is where, shaking up your team, I understand why they did it. And I think if I were them, I would probably have still done it again. But, and we'll talk about this in a bit, but, you know, just kind of planting that seed of doubt of like, is Will the best option on the left? Obviously they
Mhm.
didn't know because they made changes multiple times throughout multiple matches.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there was That and I think one thing that the last thing I'll mention about that semifinal matchup is just that like the lackluster performance of Ben and Catherine, right?
Uh,
They got steamrolled twice by Will and Anna Leigh, and Will and Anna Leigh are not unbeatable. They are very, very good, but they are not completely dominant. And um, I think it's. I had tweeted out that the biggest difference in that match is that no one plays with more confidence in the world than Will when he's playing with Anna Leigh, right? Like he Will's always has confidence, but like when he's playing with Anna Leigh, he's just like just peacocking the whole time, right? And then you
he has
have
springs in his toes.
yeah, exactly. And then you have Catherine. Nobody plays with less confidence than Catherine when she's playing with Ben, right? And I think she has some like PTSD with Ben and
She's like timid with a paddle
personality.
tap.
Oh
Like
yeah,
she holds out her paddle and she's kind of like, is he gonna do it?
oh yeah. She looks like it's like a combination of like scared, nervous, and I don't want to be here either now.
Mhm.
And and then there's Ben, obviously, who has not the most supportive partner I've ever seen. I don't think I ever saw him pump her up ever once. And I think the thing is, like, he knows that she's nervous and she's not having a good time, but he doesn't know how to fix it or he doesn't care. But so I think that's the difference in why they lost is because Catherine plays with no confidence, and then Ben just seems like he gives up.
Yeah, and the problem I think specifically, the more that I watch, then the behavioral analyst in me that I am not, he can be supportive if he thinks or you are playing good. Like there are times when he's playing with Hunter and Hunter is playing well that he like goes up to him and gives him like the classic upside down five and it's like good shot or whatever. But when you start off with zero confidence and then your play has one or two bad shots in a row, he immediately just is like, "Oh my God, how dare this person be on the court with me? You better figure it out because I'm not going to help you. If you figure it out, maybe I will let you back into my inner circle, but I'm not going to be the person that helps you." And it's like you're the only other person on the court that can help me. You think the other people on the you think Will and Anna Leigh are going to help me get my confidence back? No, no, that's your job, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's
No,
never going to happen. Never ever going to happen.
it doesn't happen. And I thought there might be like some improvement, and it's tough. Like I think it's definitely worse with Catherine, but like you could also see it with Hunter, where like the thing is like Hunter also like I don't think the body language was terrible between Ben and Hunter, but like you can tell playing with Ben and the role that Hunter has is like really hard for him, and so like he missed a ton of dinks into the net that he wouldn't normally miss, and a ton of drives into the net as well. And you're just like you just saw him like like I at one point literally he's yelling I fucking hate this court, and like I think he probably wanted to say I fucking hate playing with Ben Johns,
Yeah, yeah.
but he probably hated both. But like I mean it's tough, and I would crumble playing with Ben Johns if my role was to be steady backboard, hit a bunch of dinks. I would probably be nervous out of my mind every time the ball came
Yeah.
to me, and I would hope that Ben just pushed me off the court.
And the problem is like it's the key there also is hit a bunch of dinks. The problem for Hunter is Ben hits, let's say he hits 95% of it. That's a humongous percentage. But he has the opportunity that if Ben misses one or two of those dinks, his percentage is still very high. The problem is if Hunter's hitting five out of every 100 shots and he misses one, 20% of his shots are going to the net. And that's like a humongous mental shift for him and for Ben and for everybody on the court. It's like, wow, how did that guy miss the one dink that came his way? It's like, well, people miss shots all the time, but I'm just not getting very many opportunities to actually make balls. And so when I do miss balls, is the extra magnifying glass on that error.
Oh yeah, I'm basically cold every time that I hit a ball.
Yeah.
I got to re-warm up after every point. Yeah. All right, so that was the fives against the Mad Drops. Moving on to the finals, you had the fives versus the Columbus Sliders. Now, Gino, let me ask you: before that matchup, did you have a pick? Who do you think was going to win that matchup? The five Sliders.
So I was still leaning fives because I think why I thought that was one, the sliders after they beat the Flash and they took out the Shock, who I think was the best team in MLP. They were getting obviously a lot more street cred, and the sliders everybody was going like, what the hell going over here? Like let me check over here what's going on. But I was wondering, it's like there's no way that they can do that they level. I think at the even if they would have beaten the Shock in three with three Dream Breakers, have been like, wow, what a way to pull that match out. Gold star for you guys. Let's see if you can do it. But the fact that they just beat the shit out of the shock. I still was like, okay, the fives are rested. They look super, and granted, they ran into the match, obviously they just dispatched easily. So like, oh, they are the team, even though the sliders dispatched, for some reason, one of them seemed more likely to continue, which I thought was the best player in pickleball and Anna Leigh Waters. I didn't realize the best player in pickleball was CJ Klinger. So I was giving it to the fives at the start of the match.
Yeah, I picked the sliders in three, and I'm a freaking genius. They come out, pull it out in three. For me it was like, I mean, one thing that surprised me is I did not think that Andre and Paris were going to be able to win three matches in a row against Annalie and Will, right? Like I think everybody probably thought that Annalie and Megan were going to win women's. Everybody probably thought that CJ and Andre were going to win men's. Like I think that none of that was surprising, and they went 3-0, 3-0 for both of them, right? So it all came down to mixed matchups, right? And so you have CJ and Leia, who I think maybe won like one or two mixed matchups. I guess coming into that point, CJ and Leia had won one mixed match all playoffs, and they've been underperforming all year. And then there's Andre and Paris, who have been playing great, right? They just beat J-Dub and Georgia twice. They won one of the, they went 1-1 against the Shock. But yeah, 1-1 against the Shock is a little bit different than going 3-0 against Annalie and Will. So that might be the best mixed team, in MLP or close. And they beat them 3-0, and they weren't really that close either. Like what happened there?
No, I think, like you were saying, looking at the stats of Andre Dascu, is if you want to go to his Twitter and see, maybe he's just like eating motivational quotes for breakfast. But when you watch him play, he just seems like the most unassumingly offensive guy that there is in all of pickleball. Like the the way he plays is so steady. He's just constantly getting balls back, but then like he will speed up with you and he'll reach out, and but he just like, this is where, if we go back to the beginning of what we are talking about, it's like watching Andre. There's nothing, like for example, if we go back to the Shock and we think about Gabe or Hayden and looking at their game, it's like, hey, they have speed up off the bounce. Hayden will go for a bag. They have tricky stuff. Like you can kind of pinpoint, this is why they're so good, and it's very hard to defend. With Andre, it's just like there's no real point, I think. If you were preparing, if you were the fives and you're Leigh Waters and you're saying, hey, this is how you have to beat Andre, you can't do it. And then when Paris is playing the way that she's playing, who, if we want to talk about bad teammates, it seems like Paris is like, one of the gold standards, in my opinion, for good teammates. She seems like always high energy, fantastic person to be with when she's playing, fantastic, and counter the way that her counters were working for her all match. There's no hole, I think, that you can really pinpoint to beat that team.
No, I don't think so. And what was impressive for me for them was I felt like anytime, as soon as they put the ball in the air, they were like, we're going to win this point. And like all playoffs, Paris was like driving and crashing and like taking over the middle in women's and in mixed, which was impressive. Like she like was playing with super confidence. Andre like ascended to a new level of pickleball greatness that I don't know if I've ever seen. And like what's crazy about him, I think, is like he's so good. From transition all the way to the kitchen. Once the ball's in the air, like he's not losing almost anything. Like people talk about like fast hands, right? And like talk about J-Dub or Ben or Hayden or whatever. But like to your point, something about his hands are just so flat. So it's just like the ball never rises. Like, so he's always in it. He's always getting these balls back. And so they won basically every speed up battle for 3 games in a row, whooped them on at least 2 games. And so basically all we needed in that game, that match 3, was for CJ and Leia to win one, right? Like we just needed one. And I think like that was the matchup I thought that was going to go back and forth. CJ and Leia against Noe and Megan. I think it's probably a pretty even matchup on paper as well. And so they pull out one victory. It's all they needed, and get it done. So there couldn't have been a better time for those two to right their wrongs and figure out how to win a match in the biggest moment.
Yeah, those were some fun matches to watch as well. I was looking at it, and every time, when looking at that court, you basically have CJ Klinger, the sun, who's like shining bright, and then you have the other 3 people on the court. But watching Megan, every time a dink went to Megan Dazan, I was like scared, because I wanted the sliders to win in this overall match. And so whenever a dink was going to Megan, I feel like she was also just like, I don't know if she's been playing well for a while, but she's just also on that ascension as well. Like her counters, one, were so hard. Like every once in a while, it's like maybe it was the blonde hair and women's and stuff, but I was like, is that Anna Leigh Waters? Like she was just killing her balls. But also her dinks were so heavy and had topspin and were just like so consistent. And so every time a ball was going to Megan, I was scared, but luckily the way that it works out with CJ is that if she wants to do a cross court topspin dink, it has to go to CJ. And if you heard, I don't know if you saw, um, while on the sidelines, it's basically everybody on the fives was screaming to get the ball to Leia. And again, kudos to Leia for being able to handle that. Like imagine if she was playing with Ben Johns and the entire bench of the fives. There's multiple close-ups. Kudos to the cameraman of like Anna Leigh Waters going, find her, and Leia was just standing in it and dealing with it. And so if you don't have a partner that's willing you up to deal with that, and CJ who just played out of his mind, um, it's not going to be a good time for you.
Yeah, that's impressive. And I think Leia after the match even mentioned she was like, "Hey, as soon as you started calling me out by name, Zane, like it
Yeah.
kind of pumped me up to a new level to play some good defense." And so Leia played some inspired defense as well. So I feel like CJ was able to keep the ball away from Leia, and it's not that Leia was playing particularly bad or anything. It was just that like you don't want to attack CJ Klinger, right? So like Leia
Yeah.
knows that like I'm the spot on the court that needs to be attacked, and she was able to counter and reset, and like her ability to take a speed up and reset it back into the kitchen was impressive. And then she had some great counters herself. So
Hmm.
the Leia, who's not necessarily known for being the most clutch person ever, came up super clutch in that match, came up clutch in the Dreambreaker against the Shock, and did well in the second Dreambreaker against the Fives. Like she had one moment where Megan Dazan was just blasting her in the first Dreambreaker. Like I was really surprised. It was just so it was close, and then all of a sudden Megan's winning 3 out of 4 on Dreambreakers, which is not a good look. And you're like, oh, here we go again. Besides that kind of letdown, I think she played pretty great all playoffs, even if the wins in doubles didn't show for it.
Yeah.
All right, so Gino, I want to. So sliders are our champions, deservedly so. They went through the biggest gauntlet. They took down the 3 seed, the 2 seed, the 1 seed, the defending champions, the number 1 seed, the best player in the world. Everybody, right? They did everything. They didn't make any trades, which was recommended by many people. Like, hey, maybe they're one piece away. Who knows? But I guess the biggest question to you is I wanted to talk about, or I guess the question that we can talk about is what are the biggest what ifs of Major League Pickleball 2025? Is there anything that stood out to you? Like, if this would have happened, or if this went differently, like we might have a different season, a different champion, or something would have gone way different.
I think the biggest what if is what if the New York Hustlers had an entirely different team that didn't suck ass? No, just kidding. I mean, all I can think about, and maybe it's recency bias, but one of the biggest what ifs is some choices made in the postseason around the slider. Like I wonder if the fives had to play the sliders earlier on in the quarters. That's it would have been it would have been
Yeah,
sliders fives
sliders fives in the quarters.
because the Flash took them to Dream Breakers, and I'm wondering if everybody was unassuming of the sliders before, and the Flash had a chance to see them potentially dispatch of the fives and play them in the semis, would they have had a better game plan? Would they have the way that the sliders were playing? They were the best team over the last 2 weeks, and so I don't think anybody really stood a chance. But I wonder how we would be talking about one, the shock got destroyed by the sliders. Would that have happened? Would the shock be in the finals? I don't know, but I'm trying to think of other things. I think that's the biggest thing that I can think about is how would the playoff position be looking, but also how would we be thinking about these teams overall? Like because what I love now about MLP is it's not this redraft season in this redraft league where it's like, hey, look, this is MLP champion. Let's just have a bunch of new teams for some reason. And so, would the Flash going out in the quarters, are people down on the Flash now? The Shock getting destroyed by the sliders, are people down on the Shock as well? Is it basically just the fives and the sliders are have the best, next 2 year outlook? I don't know.
Yeah, for me, the one that I always think about is, did the Flash make the right decision in redrafting Augie? Right, so they paid for the first pick in the free agency draft, and so what I found out recently was that like there was kind of like a gentleman's agreement amongst owners that the teams that wanted to redraft their existing players that they had to drop were going to be allowed to do so. So the Flash got to pick Augie, the Shock got to take Kate, right? Which is, to me, is bizarre. Like, if this is like a real league, not even like my fantasy football league would think that that was okay. But
Not even my 6 year old. They would be like, oh
no,
yeah, no problem. They're like, no, no, no. There's an extra piece of chocolate that you don't want anymore. I want the piece of chocolate.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and this is like, it's not saying that, hey, the worst team gets to pick their best players, but the two best teams get to pick their two players that they had to drop, right? And so that, to me, that was crazy. But I still think, even though they got the first pick, and here's the specific person is, what if the Flash took Riley Newman instead of Augie? Like, does that team win a championship? Like, I don't know. I think, J-Dub and Augie, I think, did not do particularly well all season, and in the playoffs, I think they lost all of their matches. And so I'm thinking, does J-Dub and Riley win 1 out of 3, maybe, against CJ and Andre? Or does Riley and Tyra do a little bit better in mixed than Augie and Tyra? So I know in a Dream Breaker, you're probably wanting Augie, and you went to 3 Dream Breakers, right? But that's my biggest what if. Like, what if the Flash had Riley Newman?
And even in the Dream Breaker, like I wouldn't say Augie is the most solid singles player. And as you'll see Tina Pisnik and Etta winning singles points against people that they shouldn't. That's what's so great and why a Dream Breaker is so amazing and one of the best overtime events in sports. Maybe because I'm a homer with pickleball, but you see these people that never play singles ever, and they're pulling out these amazing shots because usually all of these singles players are like, this is how you play singles, this is what I do. But then when this person's like not coming to the net or hitting different types of shots, it kind of throws you, and you only have four points at a time to really get accustomed to it. And so I agree that you would want Ari, but I think to your point, the doubles improvement that Riley Newman would give you, and there were other, I think even like because James Ignatowicz even got like they could they have grabbed
Yeah,
James as
they
well?
could have
Yeah,
picked James too. Yeah.
yeah. I think the whole gentleman's agreement thing, I did not even know about that, but it's an amazing thing for a professional. Imagine Jerry Jones of the Cowboys being like, "Hey, 49ers, go right ahead and keep whoever. You can have the players that we might want them, but since they were on your team already, go nuts."
Yeah, I think that's just
Participation
because
trophy. Okay.
there's not a big enough incentive for owners to be active and to win, right? So for
Yeah.
teams to win, so there's a huge incentive in basically every other sport to be a champion, and in MLP, it's not necessarily the case yet. So hopefully that changes. They figure out how to make it incentivize owners more, and then you don't have the New York Hustlers, who, by the way, last year had Leah Jansen and CJ Klinger and Jackie Calvo,
Jack.
Jade Calvo.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Hey, Kawamoto.
Or who's the right-handed cow? Jackie?
Jackie. Jackie's the
Jackie.
right-handed
I think they
Kawamoto.
had Jackie because they had CJ. So I'm assuming that they were righty-lefty. But yeah, so that team was like one piece away from being, championship contender. They were the 6th seed last year. They took the Flash to 3 games. So, they had Jack Sock. They switched Jack Sock for somebody else, and maybe we're talking a whole different ballgame. But instead the Hustlers. And my favorite thing about the Hustlers was listening to an interview with like their GM or their coach or somebody, and he was like, "Yeah, we're picking these young players because we're trying to build a dynasty." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're trying to build a dynasty. Like, if you're trying to build a dynasty, you got to pick like spend top talent, spend money on top 18-year-olds like like or CJ or Hayden, not maybe 16-year-olds that." Are unproven. Like, it's impossible to build a dynasty that early with people that have no real track record of success.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm all for. I actually was just talking about this on X, not Twitter, about if and I actually had the Hustlers in mind, which is amazing to hear because I feel like they've totally missed the mark on that, anyways. But if you have 0% chance of being competitive in Premier, like basically, like I don't think the Hustlers would get third or even fourth maybe in challenge. Like I think the Chefs would probably beat them. The Night Owls would probably beat them. Like they don't have a road to a competitive match, and so you do. I would feel like, hey, maybe you should blow it up and try to find this top talent. But to your point, like who's even on the Hustlers now? You've got Zane Ford, you've got Dominic Schaefer, you've got what's her name?
Helena
Helena Jansen, Fink.
Jansen, I think, Fink, and you say Donald Young.
I think he was Donald Young, but I feel like he hasn't been playing recently. Like I
He
think he's
was on
injured. So
there. I think he's still Donald Young, but yeah.
okay. So like these do that like, hey, look, let's have some decent singles players on our team, and then just hope that they have good doubles, which I feel like is not what you want. When you're potentially going to a dream breaker, um, I feel like developing all of their doubles games. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. That you need to have more of these. Maybe if you want to create the dynasty of yeah, who is this prodigy that's just this random kid that is super good at doubles, and then we will work on their singles game. I would much rather have an Anna Bright who is like, hey, I will kill you in doubles and I will work on my singles game because I'm decent at pickleball versus like, hey, I have these pretty good singles players. Let's hope that they transition and change their mindset into a completely different game of doubles versus singles. I don't think that that's the right way to go about it.
No, I don't think so either. Here's another what if. Like, what if the fives don't trade for Noe and they keep Zane, or they just don't make that trade right away, right? Like, I think you could do two. There's two things that could have happened. Okay, one is if they don't make that trade when they make the trade, they still have money. They still have a trade to make. They can either do one of two things. One is they can do nothing and they can have Zane, or two, this is what I kept thinking about and it kept scaring me. They could have potentially traded for Ben Johns. Like if they don't trade for Noe, like 3 days later, you find out, oh, the trade deadline's been extended, and Kwang Tuong is no longer on this team, and now all of a sudden, like, people are thinking about, all right, what's going to happen with Ben Johns? And like, I was talking for like the whole season, like, okay, yeah, Ben is on this shitty team, he's not trying whatever. Like, just go put him on a contender. Like, there's no bigger buy low candidate in history than Ben Johns right now. So if you're the fives, like, do you make that move and get Ben Johns? Like, do you think that ever crossed their mind to try and pick up Ben Johns?
I mean, if it hasn't, they need to, Gary V, you're not the investor that I thought you were. Because, yeah, like you're saying, even if, however expensive Ben Jones is, it's like his stock would never have been lower than it would have been before that trade. And if you put Ben Jones on the fives, basically it's like everybody can just play. As good as the sliders were, if you get Ben and Emily on, that's obviously they're never going to lose. And then I think that would be like the one thing to pump Ben up is having Anna Leigh just in his sphere of influence would have that. I don't know if she and Lee would allow Ben to play as piss poor and have the attitude that he has. But that would be one of the scarier things to think about. Is Ben and Anna Leigh on the same? People thought the same thing about Ben and Colin Johns being on the same MLP team, and I want to know where everybody's at who was saying that Colin Johns is the best right side player in all of pickleball because I haven't seen Colin Johnson. I don't know if he's just becoming a coach now or something like that. I don't know. But Ben and Emily on the same MLP team is just it almost seems unfair. Like that they should have a gentleman's agreement against that of saying, hey, look, we can't put the number one player of all time in men's and in women's together on the same team. Let's all handshake against that one.
They should do that in PPA too. But yeah, I mean, Noe was like $200,000 to trade and get Noe, and Ben I think was like 400,000. The way that they did that was basically package Etta and Ben, and they paid 400,000 for Ben. And I mean, if there's anybody that wants to win at anything, it's Gary V. I think if they thought a little bit harder and thought that might be on the table, they should have done that. They would have won for sure because as good as Andre and Paris are, they're not beating Ben and Anna Leigh. And then you have Ben and Will or Ben and Zane or whoever. And I think they'll be fine, right? Like, so I think that team's winning it all for sure, and I'm glad that it didn't happen, and I hope it never happens because if there's one thing that people say is like you got diehards that like MLP because they like the team format and whatnot, but one thing that's always brought up is that what's really nice about MLP is that you get to see different matchups, you get to see different players playing with other people, and you get to see like, all right, can Ben beat Anna Leigh in mix? Like that's really fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get the two best mixed players. Can they beat? Who's going to win, or who would win between Gabe and Ben or whatnot? Where you split partners up, you put them against each other, and you see who's better, and you start trying to like really analyze these more even matchups where ideally or theoretically speaking, most of the matchups are versus PPA where you definitely have like this like almost like hockey stick curve where you have like the best players at the top, and the top four teams are unbeatable, and nobody's challenged them until the semifinals. And so you should be able to have matchups where everybody's good. So I'm glad that Ben is not on the fives, and I'm interested to see what happens. I'm not sure. I think the fives are allowed to keep him. If not, that was a very expensive rental of $400,000. Or the fives, the Mad Drops.
Yeah, I wonder if it's one of those things kind of like, the Luka Doncic trade where I feel like maybe if you're the fives, you're just thinking, there's no way on planet Earth that we can get Ben Johnson for $400,000. He's not on the table, right? Like I wonder what behind the curtain looks like of Ben being shopped around. Is it a joke? Like, hey, you're going to trade the best player in the history of pickleball. You know, eat shit goodbye. Like hang up and this is a prank call. And so yeah, I wonder where the not the fives, like you said, the Mad Drops go from here after seeing what was and you have to her credit as well, Catherine Parenteau, when she's not playing with Ben Johns, she also has some of the best defense I've ever seen. She's just like getting so many balls back and has fun, and she's also what seems like a fantastic teammate as well. Tons of high fives and screaming and yelling with her teammate, not necessarily necessarily at the other team. That do you just say, "Hey, sorry, Catherine, we're going to sacrifice you to play with it because he's the best player." What does that look like? Maybe they should put Ben and Jay together and let and Catherine, and even though Catherine might be a better doubles, honestly, Jade is right up there with Catherine, and so might as well switch that up. Or I wonder what Ben Johns says to the ownership group of the Mad Drops.
Yeah, these are all, a lot of unanswered questions. We'll have to do a pod about kind of the upcoming 2026 season, what's happening, what we expect, because there's going to be a lot of changes. For, whether or not you like or don't like kind of the formats of MLP, the one thing that is there's going to be a lot to talk about just because there's so many moves that have to be made by basically every single team. So it'll be good. All right. So with that, MLP 2025 in the rearview mirror, great season. Loved how they set it up. Loved kind of like the condensed 3-4 month kind of gauntlet, and I think everybody was invested for a good quarter of the year. And now we're back on to PPA. So we got PPA Las Vegas. All right. So number one thing is PPA Las Vegas indoors on pickle roll. So which means you're gonna have more bad bounces. You're gonna have Anna Leigh withdrawing from singles to focus on doubles. I love that was the comment by the PPA is like that she's focusing on doubles, but in reality, she doesn't want to step foot on a singles court on pickle roll because it's tough to play on that court. And I guess before we jump into the draws, I want to ask you: is playing on indoors in bigger venues or cooler venues worth it, or should they never play pro tournaments on something like?
They should absolutely, unequivocally, never play on pickle roll ever. Me as an amateur cannot stand playing on a pickle roll. It's one of those things where the first time you see pickle roll, you're like, "Whoa, this is really cool." Kind of, it's gritty, and but then you take more than 3 seconds to look at the court, and you see the seams, and there's like you're saying with bad bounces and stuff. Like you go Steph Curry, and you're bouncing the ball, and all of a sudden the ball just goes splat, and it doesn't bounce the same. I don't think there's a way for you to get a 100% consistent court feel with a pick roll versus an actual court. It just imagine if this was on any other sport that they're like, hey, we're just going to kind of roll out a carpet or not even carpet, just like a layer on concrete, and you're gonna have to play on this, and it's not gonna play the exact same thing. You're like, I have spent my whole life, or for pickleball, less than their whole lives, but like I this is my livelihood, and you're gonna say you have to get used to a different type of bounce to play in a convention center. I'd be like, this is not a professional sport. And so while I think, and I am also getting closer and closer to the train of indoor pickleball is better for the sport than outdoor because you get, no wind, less rain delay. I don't know how many times PPA can choose the wrong weekend for a tournament for a rain delay. The indoor experience gives you a more consistent experience for the actual gameplay. The pickle roll has got to go
All right.
specifically for pro.
All right, so the hard thing though is like you get rid of pickle roll, you can no longer have events like inside of that St. Louis Shock Arena, so you kind of lose like some of these really cool things, right? And so I don't know. For me, I'm still on the fence. The hardest thing is like an amateur or as a spectator, what I see is that like they make sure that center court is like pretty well done, and then all the other courts look pretty shitty, right? Like so, it's just like they roll out. They probably spend the same amount of time fixing one court as they do all the other 20 courts, and so you have like all these courts with bad bounces. And I find that like center court is decently pretty good. Like the hard thing was in New York. Like if I want to complain about the court, like the ball didn't bounce very high, but it was like relatively consistent, right? So like you just knew that the ball wasn't going to bounce. And so I think like I, for the most part, am okay with that. Like, okay, you play on this surface, the ball doesn't bounce as much, right? Like I'm sure like in tennis, like you play on grass is different than playing on hard court and different than playing on clay, right? So it's different. You have to get used to it. But I think the hard thing is like, can you make it a quality experience where there's not dead spots and dead bounces and seams and bubbles and whatnot? So if they can fix it, I might be okay with it, but the hardest thing is just like for all of the rounds before anything that's happening on center court, like everybody's playing on all these other shitty courts on the outside. People think that pickle roll courts are bad. Just try and watch PPA streamed courts on YouTube
Yeah.
and watch court 17, and you'll see the biggest bubble in the court that you've ever seen. And not only can you trip on it, but yes, if it hits there, the ball is just completely dead. So
Yeah, and I'm with you there. If they can make a consistent experience for where every pickle roll, because like with your tennis analogy is you have to play on clay, you have to play on concrete, you have to play on grass. But from clay court to clay court to clay court is the same thing. From pickle roll to pickle roll to pickle roll can be a vastly different experience. And so if they can create the consistency that if you play on one pickle roll court to another pickle roll court, and it's the exact, maybe it is a lower bounce, and you have to account for that. You say, hey, look, we're playing pickle roll. All of the courts are going to play with less bounce and whatever other differences between outdoor or standard courts. Then that's that's fine, and I agree that it's very cool to have it in these different stadiums. But I just think if I were a professional athlete and I did not know what I was getting from the ground that I was playing on, specifically in a game like pickleball where the ball is constantly bouncing on the ground, and I have, it creates a little bit of uncertainty in my brain of what's going to happen and what shot I need to hit. And in a game that is a lot based on almost kind of intuition and drilling, like, hey, this shot comes to me, these are the things that I can do. And then if that shot is coming to me, and now my brain, which is automatic, has to take an extra step to think, what can I do with this ball? It's not gonna be a good time. And then it's just also not fun to hear every single pro bitching about the courts, which bitching maybe is the wrong term because that sounds bad, but it's like rightfully so. If the entire discourse in the pickle sphere is these courts suck, you're like, oh, cool. I'm gonna have fun watching these courts hate playing, or these pros hate playing on these courts, and it's just less of a fun experience for me as a selfish watcher.
and, the thing is also is like I don't think that pro pickleball players have a lot of like leverage to make a lot of change, and there's not a lot of money in the sport. And so it's like, oh hey, would you like us to build more indoor venues with stadiums, or would you like us to pay you more so that you can actually travel to these events? And we're going to put on these shitty surfaces, right? And like these pros are kind of the lowest level of pro that there is, right? And so like you look at they're making a couple $100,000 a year, and that the conditions are not perfect, and you have Ben Johns who is able to speak out about it, but he's also making 10x what most of these people are making. So he can complain about lighting and bounces, and so can Anna Leigh, and everybody else kind of has to deal with it, right? And so the hard thing is like, all right, is this just kind of like growing pains of the sport or what? And I think that the more the sport gets exposure, gets more money, the more that they'll obviously not have to do some of these things. And I think right now it's kind of like a necessary evil, and I think they're going to probably have to deal with it. But like, you think about this, like there's this video of Daniil Medvedev. So for those of you who don't know him, he's like former #1 tennis player in the world, or top 3 Grand Slam champion, a famous hothead from Russia, and he's playing in Indian Wells on hard courts, and he can't stop complaining about the courts the whole tournament because they're so soft, right? So because they're soft, the ball is so slow on these hard courts, and he's like, these are not hard courts. He's like, the ball is so slow, and you see him after the end of a set, and he literally goes to the umpire and goes, I'm going to go to the bathroom right now, and you can go ahead and give me a code violation because I'm going to be so slow. He's like, I'm going to be so slow to go to the bathroom. Give me 3, 4, 5 code violations. I don't care. He's like, these are supposed to be hard courts, and they're so slow. I'm going to be as slow as these courts, and I'm not going to, so I'm going to go to the bathroom for 25 minutes. And he just complains. And I'm like, all right, this guy can complain because he's making like 10 mil a year, and he's playing in a stadium full of people on national television. And like, so you can't even make a court, an actual professional court surface, and you can still fuck that up for him, right? But these pickleball pros are not Daniil and Medvedev. They're not making $10 million a year. They are not being shown on, ESPN and CBS repeatedly all the time. And so it's like hard. You can't really, like, you can complain, but you have to be okay with like less than ideal surfaces. And it's the way that I think about it also is like this, like, so, you work in tech, and I, worked in tech as well. And like, I think if my team, right, it's like a bunch of like middle of the pack people in a tech company go out and they like have like a team lunch, right? Like everybody's just happy with like sandwiches and chips and whatever. No one complains, right? But if like you go to the CEO like and you give him the same lunch, he's like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, where's my nice lunch? And like, why isn't everything working perfectly? They come in the room and immediately they're like, this light is dumb. That board is not big enough. Like, why aren't these markers working perfectly? And you're like shitting your pants because everything needs to be perfect, right? But like for you and I, like nobody is expecting that, and we're just like happy that they're feeding us, right? And so I think it's the same thing is happening with pickleball, where it's like, all right, I think you guys just have to be happy that we have pro pickleball right now, and like the more that we get, become a serious sport, and the more money that comes into it, and eventually a TV deal, then we can start, phasing out pickle roll, which is the sandwich, the sub sandwich of
the shit sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. So, but so Anna Leigh not playing. Rightfully so. It's her prerogative to not play on pickle roll, but we'll see how it happens. So want to move on to the draw, Gino. Do you see what do you see happening in singles? Who do you think is gonna take it? I don't think we have Ben Johns. I don't know.
I don't think any Ben Johns, and maybe I need to look down to like the 12 seed or the 13 seed to find Ben Johns, but I didn't see him in singles. I think I'm going to go with our boy Hunter Johnson. I think all of that pent up energy of him missing dinks in doubles over MLP, he has to reassert his dominance, and he's going to take out Federico Stasstrud in the finals.
All right, so here's where I'm going to say, speaking of our boy, making a comeback to PPA, 52 seed, Chris Hayworth. Chris Hayworth coming back to the PPA. So he is going to, if he wins his first 2 matches, which he's got to play Grayson Golden, so that's going to be a nice tough match, and then would have to play.
Homeboys.
Actually, sorry, he plays Adam Harvey first, and then he would play Grayson Golden in the next round. And so after that, I think round of 16 or quarterfinals, he's playing Hunter Johnson, and so that would be like an awesome match to watch. And I think that if Chris Hayworth can get past Hunter Johnson, I think I want to see him in the finals. I'm not sure if he's going to win it on his first match, but I think Chris Hayworth is like a definite top 5 seed in the PPA, and I'm glad to have him back. And you'll have to go back and look, but the last time Chris Hayworth and Hunter Johnson played, I'm not sure what happened, but Chris Hayworth like imploded. Like he won the first match, the first game, and then I think there were some bad line calls by Hunter Johnson, at least, or some slights that I think Chris Hayworth saw, to the point of where like he ended up losing like 6-0, 6-1 or something like that in the next 2 matches, and just kind of stormed off the court like, you fucking cheater. I'm not exactly sure what happened.
You've been watching too much tennis at the U.S. Open. Losing 11? 11-0, 11-1?
11-0, 11. Did I just say 6-0, 6-1? Yeah, I definitely went to the U.S.
Boo!
Open, and so yeah, he lost like 11-0, 11-1, or something like that. It was something crazy and stormed off the court. So I think that will be a good match. I think Chris will be excited to try and pull the upset. So, but good
I
to
think
have him back.
that'll be a fun match as well, Hunter Chris, because I feel like they both have big driving. Their games are similar, and so that'll be a very fun. One of the better. What is it? Not even quarterfinals, round of 16s. Probably there ever will be in singles.
Yeah, I think so. How about women's singles? We got no Anna Leigh Waters, so got Kate Fahey, the 1 seed, Caitlin Christian, the 2 seed. Is there anybody that's knocking them off before they get to the finals?
I think it'll be fun to see. I think Salome's playing singles. So let me see if I can. Yeah, so you could get Salome, Kate, possibly in the what's that, the quarters, which would be a fun match. But I think Kate takes. I mean, maybe I'm just too invested in the seeds, but I think and this one is going to be a flip. It's not going to be a 2 seed taking out the 1 seed, but I think Kate is going to take out uh, Caitlin in singles.
All right, I think Kate's also winning, but I think she's going to take out Brooke Buckner in the finals.
Ooh.
Now, you got Leah Jansen as the 4 seed, who's always dangerous. But Leah even mentioned herself. She said, "I'm trying to do everything in my power not to avoid a MLP hangover." Right. So she's gone back to back weekends. MLP, super exciting, very emotional, very high energy. Now she's got to go play on pickle roll in Las Vegas, across the country, and so she's always a threat to win it all, or at least get to Anna Leigh Waters if she's playing. But I wouldn't be surprised if she decides to kind of phone it in and she could lose in the first round. Who knows? So we'll see what happens with Leia, see if she can overcome it. But it's always fun to see her advance far. So, I mean, I'd love to see a chalk semifinals, Kate versus Leia and Brooke versus Caitlin Christian. And then I think it's anybody's game.
Yeah, and one of the more exciting events I think it's quite quite a different experience when there's no Anna Leigh in the women's singles draw. This is like one of the more exciting things to talk about because it's like you have like I said, we both think Kate's going to win, but you can definitely see Kate losing to Salome, or you could see Brooke beating Caitlin Christian, and you can see Leia. There are so many different ways that it could go. I think it's one of the more open brackets because basically it's like Anna Leigh gets to, I guess now is getting more consistent where she's probably playing Kate more often than not. But like we're not even talking about Catherine Parento, and Catherine Parento, was a perennial silver medalist in singles as well. And so the field is wide open for the singles bracket now that Anna Leigh's not playing to focus on doubles.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I agree. I'm always, it's one of those things where I like that she's not in it so that I can see some new blood. But I also am always, I think my favorite thing is when Anna Leigh loses in singles is like, so that's what I'm always hoping for. And I'm always disappointed. So it's like, would I rather just have the disappointment, like just not even exist? Or would I like the chance to see Kate try and take her down? Like I'm like hoping, right? And then eventually it might happen, but it's not going to happen in Vegas. So moving on, mixed doubles. All right, so we have no Georgia and J Dub. So Georgia's there, but Georgia is playing with Jonathan Trong, which is quite a wild choice, to be quite honest.
I think they are boyfriend girlfriend. So Jonathan Trong, you better lock that up. I know you're whatever 17, 18, 19. Maybe just put a ring on it tomorrow. Because if she's willing to play mixed doubles with you and carry you to a 4 seed in PPA, doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I guess this whole like boyfriend girlfriend thing in pickleball is it really helps out some people. If you had Hunter getting to play with Paris, you had James getting to play with Anna. You have now Jonathan playing with Georgia. Like you have Gabe, or I guess Jesse getting to play with Gabe. Like all of these like I think pairings that I probably wouldn't have ever had. I think really the only one I think is like James and Anna were a pretty freaking dominant team, and like that seemed like a
hmm
good pairing, and it might actually still be a good pairing if they were to be able to work together. That team might still be pretty dominant. But besides that, like crazy that all of these people are playing with their partners.
Yeah, because for that exact reason. It's like this is like the don't shit where you eat kind of thing. James and Emily were a dominant partnership. Maybe it was because they were dating that they gelled so well, and then once that doesn't work anymore, it doesn't work anymore. But the, pickleball is not at the doesn't have the cachet like we were talking about to where once you break up, it's not in it, and I don't think there's enough in it for them to be able to say, "Hey, we're professional athletes. Yes, we're not together anymore." It's kind of like actors when actors start dating or they get married or whatever, and they break up and they're still acting as like love interests together. They get to it because they're making millions of dollars and
Yeah.
that's their job. Versus here, they're kind of like, I don't want to see you anymore. The relationship is worth more than us, potentially beating Ben and Anna Leigh in in mixed doubles. It's always interesting to see when people break up, like who was the carrier and who's the carryee of where is because with James and Anna, I think was the biggest one for me was like what's gonna happen, and I feel like Anna just went like this. And James, I think, was injured, and he's been kind of going sideways, but still one of the biggest shockers. Like whenever I see James and James is on, he just looks so good. But then I'm like, oh wait, but it's the quarters, and he lost again.
So who's carrying who when Georgia and Jonathan?
It's tough. So analyzing a lot of Jonathan Truong's game, I know that he plays pickleball. I believe he's a right-handed player. Um, he's the younger brother of Alex Strong, and so I mean, it remains to be seen. We
In their section of the bracket, they have Kate Fahey and Tyson McGuffin in their side of the bracket or in their section. They have Alex Strong and Eric Onsens in their side of the bracket. Are they? Can they come out of that section and make it to the quarterfinals?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna say hell no. I think that there's no chance that they can win. They're going to play either one of those two teams in the round of 16, and I think both of those teams are a heavy favorite against Georgia and Jonathan. So we'll see.
I wonder the one thing I wish I could see is I wonder what Julie Johnson is thinking right now. Like, is she so? Because I feel like Julie is more of like a mother and a coach. Like, imagine if this were Anna Leigh Waters and Anna Leigh Waters went up to Lee and said, "Hey, Mom, I want to play this PPA with a I don't know 90th ranked guy because he's my boyfriend." She'd be like. I don't even, I can't even imagine. Maybe we'll have to get AI to recreate it for us. But she'd be like, basically, that's not going to happen. I don't care. I feel like Julie Johnson's like, oh, supportive of it. Whatever you want to do. And maybe she's like, hey, you get one chance, and then Jada comes back and fuck
Yeah, I
off.
think
But
she's only doing this. She's probably thinking like, all right, it's probably better that my daughter doesn't have success without J Dub, so we'll do this. This will be fine. Because I think Julie is still also kind of mastermind behind the scenes. Like, she was like, all right, J Dub, you no longer get to play with your best friend Dylan anymore, and this is how we're gonna, manipulate all of these matchups. So I think she might be more calculated than you think, but so I think this will probably be a nice, fun one and done. I'm not sure where J Dub is, but best of luck to him in his time off. And sadly, I don't think that there's any team that's going to take down Ben and Anna Leigh. You have Anna playing with Federico. You have Christian playing with Catherine. And so I don't think so. So to me, I always think that it's a combination of like Georgia and J-Dub maybe, happens like once out of every 20. But then there has to be some kind of super team between like Anna and somebody else, I think, is the best way to beat them. But I don't think it's Federico.
I don't know why she doesn't just play with Andre Descu all the time. Like, I feel like after you beat Ben and Lee in a final, why I feel like you and me together ain't nothing but mammals. Like we are together until we I think those are the two people that have the ability to do it.
Yeah, I think so too. That's probably the best bet. They played the last PPA together, and Andre played like the opposite of what he did in PPA or in MLP. It played really bad, and they ended up
Yeah.
losing a tight one in game one. And I think they got rolled in game two, or vice versa against Georgia and J-Dub. But yeah, I think honestly, for me, I was like, I want to see Anna and Andre, Anna Hayden, maybe Anna Gabe, Anna Christian Alshon. Like, give me like,
Yep.
or Anna J-Dub. Or okay, hey, look, I'm even gonna go far. Anna CJ Klinger, right? Like, just give me like one of
Yeah.
those 6 matchups, and I want to see it happen. Like, the thing is, I'm probably more down on Federico than most people, but like he is super good in men's, but I just don't think he's as good in mixed as he is in men's. Like because he's very consistent, but I don't think he's super offensive, right? Like so I think he could be
Mhm.
more offensive if he wants to be better at mixed, and so I just want somebody that's scary that plays, on the right or whatever, or plays on the left, and so see what they can do.
Yeah, and that's what, thinking, if you're going as far to say CJ Klinger as well, I was looking at the draw, and all credit to Mari Humberg, but I feel like this is the last time she's going to have the opportunity to be playing with CJ, because CJ deserves a top five. I feel like if I were CJ, I'd go straight to maybe it's Tyra and say, Tyra, me and you are playing doubles, so you can play the left, I'll play the right. That would be a fantastic team. Imagine if it was Tyra and CJ on the Flash rather than Tyra and Augie. So I think that would be an amazing team as well. Hands for days. So please, justice for CJ.
Yeah, it's weird. There's some players that for some reason just never get as good of partners as they should, and
Hmm.
and CJ's one of them, and so I'm just always wondering like when are you going to get a great partner? Sometimes I think of that with like Kate Fahey when she's playing mixed as well. I'm just like, get like a top tier partner, all right? Like I'm not sure what happened. Why we
Yeah.
keep effing around with all these other people, But yeah, I think that that would be a good matchup. So I would say let's get Anna and Andre together, and let's get CJ and Tyra together, and then Georgia and J Dub, or Georgia and Christian Alshon or something like that, right? Like let's try and do something. Like I think that the group needs to collectively come together and say like what are our three best shots at beating these two, and like let's try and build those teams and like not poach, right? So they all have to work together to take down Ben and Anna Leigh. The other team that I'm excited to see in mixed is Riley Newman and Maggie Brasha. So I had
Yeah.
mentioned I was thinking about the two of them, and I think Maggie might have been playing with like Daniel De La Rosa or somebody. I forget who she was playing with, and Riley was playing also with. No offense to whoever they were playing with, I was just like, these two people are too good for you. You guys should be. And so I thought they should play together. And I thought that I always think like Maggie is like criminally underrated pickleball player. She doesn't play MLP. People forget about the Brashas in general. And then because Mary is so good at singles, everybody thinks Mary is better. But I think Maggie is much better in doubles. And so I think a Maggie Riley Newman team is actually sneaky good enough to make, I think, a quarters run for sure. And I think this year they could probably, or this tournament, they could possibly even make it into the semis.
Yeah. Maggie Brash is like the most vanilla, super good player there is. She's not, she's super nice, and she just like stands there and has good hands. She's a super, super solid player. And like you said, she doesn't play MLP, and she's not a big, personality. And so it's easy for her to fall through the cracks. But with somebody like Riley Newman, because, she would be making it pretty far with like Julian Arnold back in the day and stuff like that. And so I feel like her and Riley Newman definitely have. Hopefully, she's been staying warm with the last 5 weeks of MLP with no PPAs to have any matches. But that is an exciting team to be look for.
Yeah, and I think on their quarter they have Etta and Dylan Frazier, and I think that team is completely beatable in mixed. So that they could make a quarters run, then they'd have Catherine and Christian Alshon, and I think that on a good day they can beat those two too. So we'll see how far. That's my dark horse to make a long run in the playoffs. I'm gonna go ahead and say, let's see here, chalk it up. Nico's going with Riley and Maggie Brasha finals of Las Vegas.
But hopefully, Polymark is still up. You can make a pretty penny on that one.
Yeah. I don't understand how crypto works, and I also don't understand how the poly market works. So, and I think you have to be out of the U.S. So who knows? But if I could figure it out, I would bet them, and then eventually I would probably lose. All right. So we have men's doubles. So let's move on to men's doubles. Ben and Gabe going for I think 4 out of 5. Is anybody stopping them this tournament?
There is. I would put my money on Andre and Christian, actually.
Andre and
I
Christian.
think, yeah, we got Fed and Hayden. Uh, I don't know, maybe it was just the way that Hayden played in the shock match over MLP, but I feel like I've got an MLP hangover for him. And I think Andre going up, I don't think he's stopping anytime soon. I feel like Christian is, that machine that's just like goes to bed angry that he's not winning all of his pickleball matches, and so he's been trying super hard, I bet. And so if there's, I do think that Ben and Gabe are going to take it, but I think they were going to meet Andre and Christian in the final. I think it might be close,
What
maybe
was
four or
that?
five. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a close final, go to 4 or 5, and then Ben and Gabe over Christian and Andre.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's probably the matchup that's going to happen in the finals. And I think that Team Power Forward has a better chance against uh, Gabe and Ben than Hayden and Fed. I think they're just a little bit more offensive, a little bit more dangerous, and I think that Ben just wants to play people that will dink with him versus people
Mhm.
that will attack him, right? And so I think it's the scarier matchup for him playing against those two giants. So yeah, I think
Basically, they're the bigger version of Hayden and Fed. It's like, you've got Steady Andre, who has offense, and then you've got, kind of plays the new style right with Christian Alshon, but you just crop them larger, and that's a much scarier team. Having if Hayden Patrick Quinn was 6'1", and if Federico Staksrud was 6'6", the scarier team.
oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, I want to see. I do want to see what happens if maybe Hayden plays with somebody else than Federico. Like, sorry, Fed, but I was still wondering like maybe you put Hayden with CJ Klinger, or that seemed like it would be a nice scary team as well. Or you could even put Hayden with Christian or Andre and see what happens. So like I just think
Are you wanting him to play the left in men's, or are you just a new partner in general?
he can play either way. I don't care if he plays left or right. I think Hayden can play either. That's the hard thing is like he is really good on both sides, and obviously he can be more dominant when he's on the left. But at the same time, if you could probably pull a better partner if you decide to play on the right. So which is I think what's happening with Christian Alshon. Like he's able to get Andre because he said I'll play the right.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know, but I think the thing with Federico is that he's so consistent. So he's so good at he can make the finals and the semifinals all the time. But what's really hard for him is going all the way because I just think he lacks like the 10%. Like if I was Federico, I would only work on offense for like the next year and just be like I need to become more sneaky, more scary. Gabe, Hayden, kind of take me under your wings and teach me how to do some of that off balance stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the amount of times you hear Fed, he modeled his game after Ben Johns. It's like, yeah, but you're just like a not as good version of Ben Johns, and that's not a recipe for success when you are playing against Ben Johns.
All right, so last but not least, we have women's doubles. And maybe it is least because I think we're going to have Anna Leigh and Anna Bright just dominate everybody. Is there anything that's going to change that?
Nothing going to change that, but I do like seeing Paris and Catherine. I It'll be interesting to see how Paris and Catherine play together, but I think they are two fantastic women's play. The problem is you're playing Anna Leigh and Anna, so there's nobody that's going to beat that team anytime soon, I don't think. But I'm interested in seeing that the Paris Catherine partnership, and I wonder what that spells for. I wonder if Tyra's playing with Georgia. That's also I'm interested to see that team go far as well. I was like, I wonder if Tyra's not playing, but I guess maybe Georgia and Tyra, flash runs deep. I wonder if this is like a trial run. Everybody seems to be treating this as like a lot of mix-ups and partnerships, but we will see. Unfortunately, Georgia and Tyra are on the same side of the draw as Anna and Annalie. I wish they were on the other side, so that way we could possibly have a Paris, Catherine, Georgia, Tyra matchup.
But it actually might be good that they're on the same side of the draw because I think that the Georgia and Tyra might have a better chance of beating Anna Leigh in 3 versus in 5. So we'll see. Every time I throw out the what team is going to beat those two, everybody always says Tyra and Georgia. Tyra and Georgia is like repeatedly the team that everybody says. Now here is my thought with how dominant Anna Leigh and Anna Bright are. All right, so I think they're going to go undefeated the rest of the year. But I also think if Anna Leigh and Anna Bright played Georgia Johnson and Tyra Black every round of every tournament for the rest of the year, they would still go undefeated. So let's say you got to play your round of 64 match against Tyra and Georgia, and your round of 32, and your quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. I still think they're going undefeated. I think that they are never losing for the foreseeable future. Like they might lose some games now and then against those two, but I don't think that they're. I don't think that. I think that they beat Georgia and Tyra in the best 2 out of 3 like 99 times out of 100.
Yeah, but yeah, that team is the most, Ben and Emily are close in terms of dominance. I think as soon as Anna Bright went to play with Anna Leigh Waters, I was surprised, even when Anna Bright was still ascending into her, solidifying being the number two woman in all of pickleball. I was still surprised. I was like, why is Anna Leigh choosing to play with Catherine Parento instead of Anna Bright back in whatever that was, end of 2023, early 2024? And so now that they're together, it's just like, hey, do your best to get second place. And I agree. I think if they had to play every single match again, I think maybe Georgia and Tyra, if they play exceptionally well, could take maybe one, maybe two. I think
Yeah.
that does seem like the team to beat them. It's not likely, definitely not probable. So that's a good point about beating them in three versus five. But yeah, I don't see anybody taking the Annas anywhere near
No, no,
legitimate
not
contention.
a chance. And I mean, the thing is that to me, they're just like so far ahead of everybody else. Like, I actually think that people discount Anna Bright's ability. Like, I'm a big Anna Bright fan, but at the same time, like, I think the gap between Anna Bright and number three is actually bigger than a lot of people think. And then, like, a lot of people will even
I
say, like,
agree.
"Oh, Georgia is better than Anna Bright." People say that all the time, and they say that I think because Georgia has really good mixed results. She's really fun or easy to root for. She has some good, places okay in women's occasionally, and then gets to play with J Dub and make it the finals almost every time, right? But if you look at Anna, one, she took Rachel Rohrabacher, and they beat Anna Leigh and Catherine like 4 times or 5 times. I don't remember how many times, 3, 4, 5 times, whatever, right? They won, and nobody else like got even close, right? And in mixed, she's won with Andre. She's won with James. She's done well with everybody she's played with. I think she played with Gabe one. Hayden. They're doing well. She's doing well with everybody. She played one tournament that I can remember with J Dub, and they beat Anna Leigh and Ben in one tournament together. It was in the semifinals, and they ended up losing to. I don't know. Did they play? No, I got that wrong. She played with Deckel. Deckel and her beat Anna Leigh and Ben in the only tournament they play together, right? And so, like, I think that Anna Bright, she can win with anybody. She's incredible. And so, like, that gap, when you have the gap between Anna Leigh and Anna Bright is big, the gap between Anna Bright and Georgia or Tyra or whatever is big. And so, that's why they go through a whole tournament and they lose like 16 points,
Yeah.
so.
They would lose a cumulative. They have a cumulative one game score. They might lose 11 points over an entire tournament.
They're going to play, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4 matches if they're going to win a title. What's the over under? So I'm going to say if I put the over under at 21 points for the tournament that they give up, where are we at? Were you taking the over or the under?
I am going to take the over on that simply because their championship match is best of five. So that's an extra game worth of points. That maybe the extra three or four there might push me over the finish
Well, I
line.
mean, we'll see. I mean, we're saying most likely it's Paris and Catherine, and Paris and Leia like went 11-1, 11-1, 11-2 against Anna Leigh and Megan. So not a lot of points to be scored against Anna Leigh in general. So we'll see. All right. I'm going to
It's a
take the
discussion,
under.
basically. Yeah.
All right. So we'll call it 21.5 points. All right. How about that? So you take the over, I'll take the under. I just gave myself an extra point there. But we'll see how they do. I hope, for the sake of pickleball, that either somebody gets really good at women's doubles fast, or the two of them decide that they don't want to just steamroll everybody and it gets bored and they break up.
That would be ideal.
All right. So that's PPA. So we've got MLP, PPA in the books. And I think that'll wrap up. Any other final parting thoughts, from Gino the Righty?
I think the greatest thing I've ever seen in all of pickleball happened over the weekend. It wasn't actually during a point, it was right after a point. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but I want to go back to the dream breaker between the sliders and the fives, specifically Paris Todd, Queen, going up against Anna Leigh Waters. Paris hitting overhead after overhead, last overhead, two-handed backhand, which she kills, by the way, all the way off the court. Anna Leigh is doing her best, professional soccer hopeful, as we all have heard. running for it, has no shot in hell to hit this ball. Harris does her arms out Cristiano Ronaldo scream, and it was the greatest run, literally her greatest run I've ever seen in the history of the world. I think the last time I saw it, I might have been 5 years old on the Mountain View Elementary School playground, and her hands were above her head, running to the ref. No, 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 no. She cannot yell before the point is. I think there was some stomping in place. And it was just watching Onisha Smith stone faced in front of Anna Leigh, who was freaking out that somebody yelled before she had a chance to get to this ball, which is just like, it was the sweet nectar that I've been waiting for a long time. And I just want to make sure that that was known that if you haven't seen it, go watch the fives. You just watch the whole match. It's amazing. But I loved every second of that specific run, and if Prime Video would have let me rewind it, I would have rewound it 100 times. But
Oh man, Anna Leigh it was fantastic to watch. I actually think I missed it live because I was it was in New York, and I think I was watching a Broadway musical at that time, and like literally an intermission, I had to pause on Pickleball TV and hope that I did not screw up like the pause moment because it was going right into a dream breaker. So I paused it, watched the first act of The Outsiders on Broadway, which was fantastic. Got into intermission, which was like 20 minutes. Got back to my phone, hit play, prayed for the best. It was right into the dream breaker. Then I got to watch it and see that, on replay, but it was fantastic. And Anna Leigh is like the queen of crash outs when something doesn't go her way. I mean, like she's winning basically 99 times out of 100. So like with that 1% time, like she is, she doesn't know how to handle herself, and that's not her fault because I wouldn't know how to handle myself if I was like losing either. Like there's I forget who it was. I forget who it was. I was talking about like you can't fault Justin Bieber for doing the craziest shit that he does because he's an 18-year-old billionaire that has had everything he wanted in his whole life, right? And like Anna Leigh Waters is kind of similar, where she's this 18-year-old that makes more money than anybody, the best pickleball player by a mile. And so when she loses, like she just has no idea how to react, and you can't really teach that. You have to experience, you have to learn that, like to learn behavior. And so the only way she'll get better is by losing more, and I hope it happens. But like, that honestly, it was so fantastic, and it is up there. I think I still give the crash out after losing to Tyra in singles as the number one Anna Leigh moment. But this is in the top three. Like this is like, well, eventually we'll have to do a Mount Rushmore of Anna Leigh moments, where it's like the tattletale moment, the Tyra loss, the Hayden called me a fucking bitch moment are probably my top three. But yeah, that was absolutely fun to watch.
Yeah, it made that whole that final was all worth it, but it made getting that moment made the flash leading to the sliders all worth it. So thank you, Paris, for my favorite pickleball moment in all of pickleball.
Awesome. Well, it is early morning Thursday, so sorry guys that it took us a while to get this out here. As I mentioned, I was in New York experiencing all this. We'll try and get these out regularly on Monday, so look for us next week early. We'll go over PPA Las Vegas and all the other things happening in pickleball. Thanks for staying tuned for quite a while. We had a lot to cover with MLP finals and PPA. All right, and as always, you can find us on the socials at Nico the Lefty and Gino the Righty. And if you guys have any comments, suggestions, whatnot, want to troll us, our comments and DMs are always open.
We love it.
All right.
Bring it on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.